Hello everyone and welcome to the Alchemical Mindset. I am Renz and I want to thank you for joining me as we are going to break down something that was said on TikTok by China McClain. Now for those who don't know who China McClain is, she is a young lady local here to Atlanta. I think she's a wonderful young lady, a wonderful actress. I first saw her in Daddy's Little Girl. She gave a wonderful performance and she's done many other things as well. Well, today we're going to talk about a TikTok that she has right now that's going very, very viral, and I did speak a lot about it within a lot of conversations with other people that really broke down Einstein's theory of relativity, the Big Bang, and how she attributes everything to God, and how science is actually proven that the universe is not eternal. Well, in this video today, I'm going to give you information to let you know that actually her video is quite wrong. And for the most part, she's an intelligent young lady. I am not here for character assassination. We don't do that. So if you want to do any character assassination, don't do it in the comments. Don't do it at all. It's not worth it. We're here for an exchange of ideas, an exchange of mindsets, of thinking, being able to, be able to process data in such a way that we become more wise. So I'm not here to assassinate her character. Like I said, she's a great, beautiful young lady. I wish her well in all her endeavors as far as acting and singing and anything else she does. But this video, I thought differently. I think differently, and the evidence proves it. And she was, as a lot of people who are religious, when they are confronting something in science, they either try to make the science fit their paradigm or they misrepresent the science. And in this case, there's a little bit of both. That where it's a misrepresentation of Einstein, it's a misrepresentation of the theory of relativity, it's a misrepresentation of the Big Bang. But at the end of the day, and I'm going to say it now, at the end of the day, we all have to get to a point where there is a point where both should be able to say, I don't know, because you can't prove it. And this is where faith comes in for a religious person. But this is where a person as myself, who is a hermetic alchemist, will just say there are things that we have yet to discover. There are things that we will never discover. But we will always theorize. We will always test. We will always see if we can repeat the experiment to come to an understanding, to get more in sync with the universe, with how things function. So without further ado, let me play her video so that you guys can sample and see exactly what she's talking about, and then we'll go from there.
Have you ever heard of the theory of general relativity? It's what Einstein is famous for. In his calculations, he started to realize that the universe was not eternal. It had a beginning. Now this leads us to the law of causality. Everything that came to be needs a cause. So Einstein clearly knew that if the universe had a beginning, it needed a cause. Let's go to the Big Bang Theory. There was no space, no time, and no matter before the Big Bang. The universe emerged out of nothingness. What does that mean? Since it's impossible for the universe to be able to create itself because it didn't exist in order to be able to create itself, nature and the universe itself was just a big effect that was caused by, what are we left with? An extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, precise, given the precision that our universe was created with, personal entity that is capable of existing outside of time, space, and matter. That can't be nothing but God. And for people that are like, okay, well, how do you know that it's like Christianity's God? There's only one God. But there's a very famous astronomer named Robert Jastrow. His credentials as a scientist are impeccable. Being agnostic, he's not even a Christian. He said that all of the essential elements of the Big Bang Theory line up with biblical creation. Because this is how God works. God speaks something and then science runs to catch up with what he said. Science doesn't create anything. Science studies creation. Let me just answer a question that I always get. Who created God? What'd I say? I said everything with a beginning. Everything that came to be needs a cause. God didn't come to be. God is eternal, the way a lot of people thought the universe was until science disproved it. So God doesn't need a cause or a creator. He is the cause. The universe is the effect. Don't just take my word for it. Go look into it for yourself. One more thing. Evidence is not a substitute for faith. Following God is not a matter of evidence or proof. It's a matter of the will. You have to want to do it so you can have the peace that you're looking for. And if you don't want to make that choice, no amount of evidence is going to convince you to. You have to want to.
So as you see from her video, you see everything that she talks about, and we're going to take it beat by beat. to break down exactly what she's saying. Now, the first thing that she says is that she brings up Albert Einstein and how he is most famous for his theory of relativity, but that even Einstein realized that he was wrong, and through his calculations recognized that the universe is not eternal. Well, that's not actually true. That's not actually what Einstein said, did, or what actually happened in history. So let's break down what actually happened in history. Well, for some people, they may know, most people know of Einstein's theory of relativity as far as how it deals with building on gravity from Sir Isaac Newton, building on and then going into the relativity of the speed of light and light speed and time travel, and how time is affected by the position of the person and the speed of the person or object. And also about concerning the light spectrum, how light bends when it comes across the sun or stars or things of that nature, as well as gravitational waves, how gravitational waves function as far as when light comes to the earth and the gravitational waves that bounce back, and gravitational waves throughout the universe in space as it is. Now, there's a couple of things that must be understood. The main thing she's talking about, though, is the portion of relativity that deals with the static universe. You see, Einstein came into his equations already with the preconceived notion that the universe is static, that the universe is infinite, that the universe is eternal, that it already is what it is, that it's not expanding nor is it contracting, but it's static, right? It's still. Because he already had this preconceived notion, there are a few things that Einstein left out of his equation that would have given him a different result if he had placed them in his equation. Now, because he got the result he was looking for, he did no further research to check and see exactly if he was correct. Now, true science is to check your, when you do the experiment, to go back and check it again and check it again and check it again to make sure that you're getting a repeat result. That is not what happened. So Einstein believed in a static universe. Now, when she says he realized that the universe had a beginning, that is not exactly true either. That's not what happened. You see, some years later, during the life of Einstein, actually in 1922, you had a physicist known as Alexander Friedman. He was born in Leningrad. He's a Russian, and he came out and repeated Einstein's process, except, and I gotta put my glasses on so I can see what I see in my notes. Except he added in the amount of matter and the balance between matter and energy into the equation, because in Einstein's equation, he had it where the universe had empty space, that there's no space in the universe. But we know now that there is no such thing as empty space, that there is no such thing as a place without matter. Matter exists at all different scales. We just can't measure all the scales that matter exists, and we'll get more into that a little bit later. So Friedman added the balance of matter and energy into the formula, to which when he did that, he wound up getting a universe that is expanding, right? So by doing this, it is not Einstein's theory of relativity that quantum physics and higher levels of physics are based on. It is actually Friedman's solution that which is now the standard of large-scale structure of the universe. It is Friedman's equation, not Einstein. So to put so much on Einstein as far as your proof is not a good thing, because Friedman came along in 1922 and then was followed by other astrocosmologists and physicists to show that the universe is expanding. And these other people in 1927, 1926, these people came to their own conclusion independent of Alexander Friedman. But what this demonstrated, that the universe was expanding, and hence we get our Big Bang theory really starts to grab hold, because the universe is expanding. And if the universe is expanding from a single point, then it must be, at some point it will cease expanding and then begin, because of gravity, because of our current understanding of gravity, it will come back in upon itself. Later, physicists today look at it as more of a shuttlecock. If you've ever played badminton, that's called a shuttlecock, where you have the point and it funnels out. And the reason why you have to look and understand the shuttlecock is because it funnels out, meaning it comes back down to a single point. is for you to get to what actually makes the universe eternal. Many people just simply know it as the Big Bang, the Big Crunch, all condensing down to a small, the size of what I think it was Stephen Hawking who coined it down to the size of the head of a pin. And people think of that in the ridiculous because we measure things based on the mass of what we see. I'm big, you're small. Everything must be based on our size models. I love the movie in Will Smith with Men in Black when they say you humans always think the universe, that a galaxy has to be big when it was in the marble of the necklace of the cat. So we have to in order to be able to think this way, think alchemically, you have to get past your preconceived notions of what things are throughout the entire universe, because things are just not that. So in Friedman's equation, and we have our Big Bang, Big Crunch, and then it repeats, it comes down to this smaller point. And at that point, first Einstein was pissed. He was mad. He didn't see. She said through his equation. It wasn't his equation. He was actually pissed, and he wrote actually a horrible piece denouncing everything that Friedman wrote. But then later on, realizing that he was wrong, he retracted what he had written and retracted his ideas of a static environment. But this does not mean that the universe had a beginning in the way that she puts it, that Einstein proves that the universe is not eternal. And we'll get to that idea of eternal a little bit later, because most people can't fathom eternity. You really can't. So she starts talking about the law of causality, and because the law of causality, which in the Hermetics is called the law of cause and effect, for every cause there is an effect, for every effect there is a cause. And she is saying that the nature of the universe is the effect. Like everything around us is the effect. And there has to be a causation, because you cannot create, the universe cannot create itself out of nothingness. And that was a mistake that she made in concerning the law of causality, that the universe created itself out of nothingness, and since that is impossible, then the universe is not eternal, and it can't do it. So it must have a creator, and that creator is the causal factor, and the universe is simply the effect. And so she begins to talk about the Big Bang Theory, to which she grossly misrepresented. She said that in the Big Bang Theory, her claim is that there is no time, there's no space, no time, or matter before the Big Bang. Well, this is actually very incorrect, incredibly incorrect. And I'm going to give you guys the highlights, because I don't want to bore you to death with a bunch of science and things of that nature that you would have to go back and research anyway. So the idea of saying that there is no space, time, or matter, the only one that she was right about is time. There was no time. Because time is relative. Time on Earth is different from time on another planet. Einstein demonstrated in his theory of relativity that the faster you are going, the faster an object moves, the slower time becomes. Now that is happening, and the higher an item is, the elevation of an item, compared to the lower part, time is differentiated. Now it is only in the milliseconds. So like your head is older than your feet, but it's by such nanoseconds, I said milliseconds, but nanoseconds, that you wouldn't notice. It's not something that you notice. It has to be at a incredibly high speed in order to see that happening, for you to understand how time moves differently based on your speed. Like a person standing in the middle of the street and two lightning bolts strike on the left and the right would see those two lightning bolts striking at the exact same time. Whereas a person on a train that's speeding at 100 miles per hour, as they pass by both lightning bolts strike, they will see the lightning strike at different time intervals, simply because you add speed into it. So time is an illusion, because time is something here. Now, when it comes to understanding the Big Bang and the fabric, space-time fabric, the fabric of space-time, it's a bit different. You see, space is always in existence. There's always matter, because no space is empty in the universe. There was a time frame where they believed that the space was empty. Before, during Einstein's era, they believed space was empty, that the distance between the Earth and the Moon was empty space. It was later realized that there is matter in between that space. This is why, if you are a person who watches Star Trek, You'll know they always have to turn on their deflector shield. Well, the deflector shield is there because if they are going at light speed, they are moving so fast that the minute level of matter is vibrating at such a high frequency that yes, you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it, but they are moving so fast that they experience the friction of it at that point, which is why they have to have a deflector shield. So it's greatly written because it's based on the science that there is matter in space. All space is filled with matter. So to say that there was a time where there was no space, no, that's incorrect. There was space. There's time there was no time of matter. There's matter. Even in our understanding of the trueness of the Big Bang Theory, where everything comes down to a shuttlecock pinhole, and then there is the singularity, we recognize that there are forms of matter that is there in the form of different types of energy and frequencies, right? So, and because this is cyclic, the Big Bang and the Big Crunch, it all condenses down, and then because we have seen black holes colliding, black holes is what condenses all matter, and eventually all matter will condense down into multiple black holes throughout the universe. Therefore, there will be space and matter. These black holes are so dense and the matter is so crunched that as these photons that are hot and vibrating at a high rate of speed, and you know, if you are a hermeticist, you understand that the law of vibration, that all things vibrate, and some things vibrate at such a high speed that you can't see it with the naked eye. You can't measure it. At some point it vibrates to a point where we don't have the knowledge nor tools to be able to measure it. So it is vibrating at an incredibly high rate, and it's still bombarding these black holes, and these black holes, gravity pull them towards each other, and as they pull towards each other and collide, we have seen tremendous amounts of energy released from these black holes when they collide. So the Big Bang Theory is that these are still coming and colliding. Now, as our universe, just look at our solar system actually. Once our solar system is engulfed and drawn into a black hole, time will not exist for us. Our way of time doesn't exist, won't exist. If there is no observation of the passage of light, then time ceased to exist in the way that we measure time. So there is no existence of time at that point. But matter and space still exists, is still present. And when it becomes so dense and the energy builds up, it explodes out again from that one singularity. And then it all starts over. And it continues as a repetitive cycle over and over and over again. Let me give you a little bit more math and science on this. Planck. So two of our greatest equations of science and astrophysics is E equals mc squared, which at the end of the day, energy equals mass. And then there's E equals h nu, which h stands for the constant proportionality of the universe, or Planck's constant, and then nu equals frequency. So energy with Planck's constant of proportionality equals the frequency. So energy equals frequency. So if energy equals mass and energy equals frequency, then mass equals frequency. If you truly understand the Hermetic laws, you know that every piece of mass puts out a frequency. If you want to disrupt an item, like if you want to sing at a certain pitch, a certain frequency, it disrupts the mass of a glass because you hit the right frequency that would create that disruption. So all mass, all forms of mass have energy, have a frequency. Singing has a frequency. You can't see the vibration of the words that's come out of my mouth, but that vibrational pattern that's coming out of my mouth have both a frequency and a mass, and they are one and the same. Because of that, we are able to measure it in today's world. You can put different things up and measure the frequency of my voice right now, but as these photons continue to speed up, if the vibration gets so high, so fast, like my ears can register the frequency of my voice, but my ears can't register the frequency of a dog whistle, because at that point I've lost my scale to be able to measure the frequency. As these particles vibrate, these photons vibrate as the world comes into this black hole, as the universe comes into a black hole and is vibrating at such a high rate, we lose our ability to measure the mass. Although the mass maintains its shape, we lose our ability to measure the mass, and therefore we have the concept that there is no space, there is no time, right? And there is no matter. But matter still exists. We just can't measure it. This went beyond our ability to measure the spectrum of it. Just like there are light spectrums that we had to invent different tools to be able to measure those light spectrums, right? But as long as it keeps its shape, right, then it will eventually hit a point of the singularity and explode outward. And what has been found to be very interesting, see, this is one thing I'll have to say this again, not disparaging anyone's character, but too often we hear something without studying it, without diving deep into it, and then we go out and we repeat it and it sounds good, but we don't truly understand it. The reason why we say that it is a repetitive cycle is because there have been different frequencies and gravitational waves that we've been able to catch those signals from a previous singularity, from a previous Big Bang, which demonstrates the cycle of the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. And this will be hard for those who follow religion to grasp and understand, because for them, all creation must start with their version of creation, which we're going to get to in a little bit. But she says that since law of causality and the framework that she put it, that the only thing that you're left with is God, an intelligent, all-powerful God, a precise God. And then there's this thing that if you saw a video I did like a year ago, I call religious superiority. Then there's a quick statement that she made, but there's only one God. I think the Hindus will have something to say about that. The Muslims will have something to say about that. The African spiritualism will have something to say about that. I think there's there's more people on the planet that would disagree with you on that than there are who would agree with you. But this is where a person's faith comes into play, but their religious superiority is also there, because you make the assumption that your God is that one God when it's not. And since we're talking about space, time, and matter, I want you to think about it in this, and I oftentimes think about this in the law, in the Hermetic laws, and the law of mentalism. There's the all in all, and there's the idea, there's the thinking that everything in existence right now is a holographic projection of the thoughts of the creator, the intelligent mind. It is all just a projection of that thought which came into existence. Now, in that understanding, you can say that God exists outside of space, time, and matter, because it is outside. That thought is occurring within the mind of the infinite intelligence, but not actually happening in the same space-time as the infinite intelligence. To give you an idea of that, I want you to think about when you dream. When you are in your dream state, space doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. I've had dreams that went over a course of years within the dream, but yet it was only the 5-6 hours that I was asleep. Time doesn't matter in my dream state. So, and matter doesn't matter in my dream state, because the matter is not real, is not something outside in my reality, but it is something that is in my thoughts, my mind, that I've created, an entire universe I've created. And because time exists differently in my dream state, just as the Bible and the Christian Bible and many other books say that all of existence happens in the twinkling of an eye for the Creator. What is to man 1,000 years is a second to the Creator. This is something that you've already believed. So in your dream, you do the exact same thing. Just something for you to conceptualize there. Okay? So she says that only God could have done that, which brings her into the same level as Einstein. He had a preconceived notion, and to say that only her God could have done it it means that regardless of what information is presented, you're stuck right there. That's it. There's nothing else. Then she quotes she talks about a astrophysicist, Robert Jestro, who said that the Big Bang lines up with the essential elements of the Bible, right? Now, there are so many creation stories that line up with the essential elements of the Big Bang. According to the Maori people, there was darkness, and then the Creator spoke and light happened. According to the Upanishad, there was God, and He spoke light and everything into existence. According to Native American tribes back in Arizona, there was God, and He spoke, and the lights came into being, and man came into being, and the stars came into being, and He separated the waters. There are so many cultures around the world who did not have contact with Western cultures, but they all have an idea of the Creator was in darkness. There was nothing but darkness, or there was nothing but chaos. The Greeks there was chaos, and then out of chaos came the universe. But there was darkness, there was chaos, and then they spoke everything into existence. God, the Creator, whoever that is. There's an African teaching, I forgot which tribe, but the god Unabolt spoke out of the darkness, and light came into existence. Created a man and a woman. They ate fruit from a tree that they weren't supposed to eat from, and then they blamed the snake for them eating the fruit. This was in a sub-Saharan African culture that did not have contact with Western Christianity when they made up when they had that story. All right, so many cultures have creation stories that line up with the essential elements of the Big Bang. And you have to understand the essential elements of the Big Bang. There was darkness, this black hole, the singularity, explosion, let there be light, the creation of planets, the separation of water and land. All these things are essential elements of the Big Bang that does play out in many of your stories. Many of the stories, they play themselves out, but not just the Hebrew story, because your Genesis story is not a Christian story. It's the Hebrew story, which actually that Hebrew story is a Canaanite story, which is actually a Sumerian story. So, we go through many cultures before we get there. But she said that God speaks and then science runs to catch up. And I will agree with you on that. Yeah. That creation happened. Our creation happened. Our current universe happened from the last singularity. And science is looking to figure out how things happen, where things happen. Science is not, no, you're right. Science is not creating photons and neutrons. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, which is interesting, because if energy cannot be created nor destroyed, then that would insist that energy is always there, has always been there. So then that would mean that matter has always been there, because energy has always been there, and energy is matter. That would mean frequency has always been there, and frequency is matter. So that would make the universe eternal. Eternal. Now, she said that people will then ask who created God. She said that, well, God is eternal. Nobody created God, because she said, go back to what she said. If something is created, then it had to have a cause. It had to have a beginning. And you're right. It would be. And that she said God is eternal. Well, here's the thing. As I just said, matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Thereby, matter is eternal. And if the universe is composed of matter, then the universe is eternal. The matter is also frequency. So the frequency is eternal. So the universe is eternal. Now, here's the thing. We can ask the question, where did God come from? From my perspective, the types of gods that people have today is made up by man, created by man to try to explain the universe. But at a certain state, in every thought process, science or religious, what scientists will do, and people of an alchemical mindset will do, is get to a point where we say, I don't know. Whereas Religious people cannot say I don't know, but it is the I don't know and let me find out. And she says that evidence is not a substitution for faith. And for a religious person, you're right. Evidence is not a substitution for faith. Faith is based on not having evidence. But the problem is that when you do have evidence, your faith causes you to ignore the evidence in order to maintain what it is you already believe. You see, Einstein got pissed when Friedman disproved his static universe. And because he was pissed and wanted to hold on to the faith of his equation that was wrong, Einstein got mad. Einstein had negative things to say. He wrote negative things. But then when he calmed down and went back to being a true scientist, he recognized that I was wrong. Let me change my thinking. Religious people have trouble doing that. It's hard. I get it. Because she talked about if you do that faith is a matter of the will to want to, the will to say, this is just what I'm going to believe, regardless of what happens, regardless of what I learn, regardless of what information comes to me, because that gives her peace. And if it gives you peace, that's fine. I'm not here to disrupt anyone's peace. But what you should recognize is that people who don't believe that are not walking around without peace. I was not in peace when I was believing in Christianity, when I was trying to believe in Islam, when I was, doing all my research. I wasn't at peace. Was I not at peace because of God? No, I wasn't at peace because of all the people around me. When you got ministers calling you names, when you got people, dogging you because you don't believe what they believe, criticizing you, trying to assassinate your character, I allowed their emotional outbursts to cause me a disruption. But when I began to say what they think doesn't matter to me, the only thing that matters is how I think, how I feel. Am I carrying around their fear? Am I carrying around their guilt, their shame? Am I feeling like I'm at a loss of something, a loss of love? When I'm not telling myself the lies about myself and believing that all these things, that we're just such a disconnected people, when I let go of all these earthly attachments, I found my peace. And it wasn't in a God. It wasn't in me thinking that I am the creator. Now, I'm a little G, because your books say that you created in the image. Hell, every book says you were created in the image of God. And because we think like a God would think, because we can dream and create entire universes in our minds as you describe God, then I'll say that I'm a God inside of God. I'm a God inside of the intelligent mind of the creator. That's what I would say. Now, I do believe that there is an intelligent creation. I do not accept, I'm going to say believe because it's not something to believe. I do not accept evolution. I do not accept that we came from a single cell organism to a multi-cell organism into something in the water to something that walked on land and then became all kind of birds and baboons and then into the human form. I don't agree with that at all. And if you want to quote other scientists, there are many who have found DNA evidence that would be supportive of the Sumerian story of Enki and Ninharsag getting together and playing around, adding Anunnaki DNA to our DNA, which makes us have Anunnaki, a portion Anunnaki, a portion, the human creature that was here on the planet. And if you think about it, the fossil record actually supports the idea that there were all these different variations of man, because Enki and Ninharsag made 16 variations of man before they got to what we are today. And that is actually more supported by the archaeological record than evolution is supported by it. The fossil records support that more than it does. But of course, people don't want to think that DNA was accelerated in order to create a slave race for the Anunnaki to mine gold in the Garden of Eden. And if you think about it, why does the Bible say, and in the land of Eden there was much gold? If there's only two people, what do you need gold for? You don't. So I am truly at peace with everything that I know. And she says to go and research it and go look. And she said that there was a long version of her video in her bio. I looked for it. I didn't see it. Maybe I'm doing something wrong on TikTok. I'm just now playing with TikTok. I'm having fun with it. But this discussion went on, and many people, a bunch of people kept sending me tons of comments when I just merely said that she had the understanding of the Big Bang Theory and correcting that the universe is eternal. And many people came at me in her comment section, but that was fine, and had longer conversations thereof. And of course, people trying to convert me and say that God, that she's right, and God is, her God is the creator of all things. But please get out of the religious superiority if you are religious. No religion dominates the planet. And even within that religion, there are thousands of variations of thought within each one of them. And you can try to justify some of the horrific things about religion if you desire, but that's on you. But I want you guys to understand that, again, I continue to follow her on TikTok. She has some very creative and great videos. The religious ones I don't necessarily, care for, because it's not for me. But when you take something like this and try to wrap it into your package and make it fit, and it's completely wrong, I will say something. And initially it was just going to be that comment, but so much came after that. I was felt like I know my audience would appreciate a deeper dive into it. But go and study these things. Look up Friedman, Alexander Friedman. Look up how the Friedman equation is how we structure and think of the universe, that everything is based on that. Understand that mass, that energy is equal to mass, and mass is equal to frequency, and that means frequency and energy are the same. And frequency and energy have mass, and space is never without mass. Therefore, there has never been a moment where there has not been matter in the universe. We just can't measure it. And time only exists based on our perception of time. There is no universal clock of time throughout the universe, and that we go through the cyclic singularity of colliding black holes, which explode and creates and manifests the universe, and then contracts back and repeats the same cycle, because we've received gravitational waves and frequencies from eons beyond of previous. So go do that research, go look it up, get a bigger understanding of it. Know that there is always going to be a question that cannot be answered. Where did the matter first come from? No one will ever be able to answer that question. And if you are a religious person, you will always say God is eternal. But the truth is, you don't know if God had a beginning or not. You don't know if God is a small child sleeping and we are merely a dream of that small child. You don't know. And they're just in the first hour of their sleep. And our billions of years is only equal to that 1 hour. Truth is, you don't know, nor can you prove or disprove that. No one can prove it or disprove it. It's just the way some things are. You just will never know. The best we can do is try to understand our current construction of the universe and the universal laws that are in play. Utilize those laws to elevate our consciousness so that we are above the carnal life of man. That we don't live in fear, shame, and guilt. That we allow people to pursue happiness as long as they are not infringing on the happiness and the right to do the same of someone else. That we recognize that there are multiple dimensions of existence beyond this one. So therefore, the idea of nationalities and gender and race and all these things will cease to exist. At some point in your conscious evolution, they will cease to exist. So our goal is to elevate our mind, to become the alchemist of our mind, where we become more pure in our thinking, recognizing that we are pure, energetic beings. So y'all have a great day. Remember, you gotta free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good vibration, good journey.